so much. I love you so much. I love you so much. I love you so much.
Hello, all you positive heads out there. Thanks for tuning your beautiful brainwaves into another episode of the Positive Head Podcast, where we are firmly convinced that creating success and happiness is rooted in understanding the ultimate nature of reality and the fact that as human beings, we are all immensely powerful fractals of the one and only source consciousness, which creates and animates all things. Now, of course, understanding this powerful truth is one thing. Applying this incredibly empowering wisdom to everyday life? Well, that's another, which is exactly why we provide you with a fresh serving of soul food for thought 5 days a week to help constantly remind you of what matters most. You are it. And I'm your host, Brandon Beecham. I'm the reflection and extension of you who will be here each Wednesday interviewing a different consciousness changemaker. And on the other 4 weekdays, leading the way to ensure that your perspective is consistently expanded, your vibration is constantly elevated, and your heart is overflowing and full. Also, this episode of the Positive Head Podcast is being brought to you thanks to the support of Gaia. If you're not familiar, Gaia is the go-to source for streaming consciousness content online, and you can sign up for your first month for only 99 cents at gaia.com/positivehead. That's spelled GAIA.com/positivehead. Check it out. Greetings and salutations, Positive Heads. Here we go again. So happy to be here with you guys to answer some questions today, discuss some otherworldly, beyond the veil, magical weirdness. Seems like a good day for that. I think it's a good day for that. Do you think it's a good day for that? Apparently you do. You're here. And before I jump in, I do have a review I would like to read. I do that at least once an episode. I would like to read this review on iTunes. You guys know I love my iTunes reviews. They not only help us to reach new people, they definitely help to fuel my fire and continue this labor of love that I'm putting out into the world. It's such a good feeling to hear the feedback from you guys and the fact that you guys appreciate the show so much and just such a beautiful, magical way to connect. And this review came in from Neale. Something like that. Best podcast, simply what the title states. 5 stars. That's it. Short, sweet, to the point. Thank you, Emil. I have another one here I'll read since that one was brief. This one is by Hessa Janiak. So guiding and helpful. I thought I had reviewed a couple times before, but I have no record of it going through. I love Brandon and the guest he invites on his show. Their conversations are so meaningful and inspiring. There's so much affirmation through the ages with everything discussed here, giving such a depth of understanding. This is such a helpful podcast for me and many of my friends. Keep up the amazing work. Oh, thank you, Hessa, for taking the time to push the review through. I have had other people tell me that they've had issues with reviews, and iTunes can be a little wonky sometimes. And then some people aren't, Apple users and don't have iTunes. Of course, you can find the show on Google Play. You can find it on any of the podcast apps. SoundCloud will be on Spotify soon. Not quite yet, but soon enough. And I believe there's a way to even review on iTunes, even if you're not currently on there. You can sign up for a free account and review. But whatever's clever, even writing in. I love hearing from you guys, Brandon at positivehead.com, or sending in your questions. Of course, love getting those as well. And that's actually what happened today. One of the lovely P-heads out there, Kelsey Marie, who sent me she's such an amazing artist, and she sent me a drawing that I just loved a while back, and you can see it in the Connor Evans Facebook Live version of the interview. You'll see there's a flowery dinosaur to my right and his left in the, I don't even know what you call this thing that I have, sort of like a divider with windows on it, and I've got a bunch of cool pictures in it, and hers is one of them. Anyway, she wrote me on Facebook and had a question that I thought was cool, fun, something interesting to dive into today. And her question was, so this has been on my mind for a while now. A psychic medium did a reading on me, and I asked him about my grandmother. Her and I were super close, and I think it was an episode you talked about where you can be reincarnated back into your family. So I had asked her if one day she would like to come back to me, if she would. No joke, the medium told me she had advanced so quickly in the spirit world that she is going to come back soon as my child. So of course, I'm in tears of joy because before she died, she told me, you and I will always be together. But then I told my mom and she was like, well, what the heck? When I die, I want my mom to be there to greet me. Do you think it is possible that she can be reincarnated, but also in the spirit world? Like maybe we can be in many places in many different times? Higher self and spirit world in one form, on earth in another? I don't know. Okay, great question. And this is something that we have talked about before. And certainly I'm no expert, but I certainly have lots of thoughts and theories and have explored a lot. And I actually was supposed to interview Georgina Cannon yesterday, and we had to reschedule that interview. But she is a reincarnation specialist and does past life regressions and years, decades of study on reincarnation. So that's a forthcoming episode for you guys to look forward to. And of course, this question came in right after I was supposed to do that interview. I'm like, well, I'll get to talk about reincarnation yet. And then of course, here in the coming weeks, we'll dig deeper down the rabbit hole on this topic. So I think back to a lot of stories. What I can look at is I've looked at a lot of, there's quite a bit of study out there, books. Brian Weiss comes to mind, who has done lots of past life regression and people healing through remembering past lives. Of course, one of the things that comes to mind is the late psychic Sylvia Brown, who talked. I remember one time seeing her talk about how I want to say her granddaughter had been her grandmother previously, and the granddaughter would remember, like things like, they'd be at landmarks where they used to live, 50 years ago and say, oh, remember when you were little and I carried you across the road here, and things like that. So there's been a lot of that sort of stuff. And what Sylvia claimed is that we do indeed come back oftentimes in the same families, in the same DNA line, if you will, because we are soul family as well as physical family in many cases. And so there will be these sort of recurring, recycling back into the same genealogy. So I definitely believe that's a possibility. Another person on the Facebook group, by the way, if you guys haven't gotten on Positive Heads, the private Facebook group where listeners are connecting and opening up and sharing and supporting and asking questions. And it's a wonderful, wonderful spot on Facebook. So definitely join us there at Positive Heads. But a while back, Ambrosia Matthews posted an amazing story, a video account. And I think I even shared it last maybe 6 months ago or so on the show. Actually, looking back, I even share that clip and talk about it in episode 457. So if you guys want to go back and check that out, or just go into the Facebook group and search Ambrosia Matthews, and her video will come up where you can see and hear her talking about the story with her own daughter, if I recall, who, as she was, a toddler, started talking about how she used to be grandma and how, and it got into all kinds of issues with Ambrosia's mother, who they had a kind of a tense relationship, and a whole healing thing happened where, the daughter, now the granddaughter apologized to her grandmother for being, I guess cold or cruel, if I recall, as when she was her mother. And it's a fascinating account. So yes, that's my long-winded answer to, do I believe that your grandmother could come back? Certainly. Now, the one thing that you touched on is, well, what the heck? I want my mom to be there to greet me, is what your mother said to you, and that makes sense. And here's the thing, and I think back to the book Conversations with God, which, if you guys haven't checked out, I highly recommend. There's multiple books, I think like 6 or something, but some of my favorites. And in that book, they talk about how it all works and how the whole reincarnation process happens. And one of the things is that's tough for us to wrap our brains around, because we live in linear time. is this idea of, someone being, it's either here or there kind of thing. And what that book talks about and what I resonate with and believe is the idea that you can be in both simultaneously in the eternal now. There is no time ultimately. So I believe there's even, my consciousness, if you will, is extended into all kinds of other forms. What would be my quote unquote past lives are happening on another channel right now. Linear time is just a way that we separate this stuff out, but really it's illusory, right? So can grandmother be in non-physical and physical? Yes, I would say. Matter of fact, I believe we all can and are now. So that's a lot for us to sort of wrap our brains around because we live in this linear time, and it's, kind of melts our minds to think about being, non-physical eternal beings. But that's what I believe. And I've heard it said before, even seeing souls on the other side who are in physical, and there's a difference when they have part of their energy diverted to physical interaction, right? So I think that's kind of an interesting concept. It sort of makes sense if you're dealing with beings on the other side, right? And you're connecting with a being, but part of that being's energy is diverted into a physical body, like their toe is being dipped, in physicality, if you will. And let's say you were interacting with them. Well, maybe there's an energetic difference there. There's some level of dividedness that's going on. So maybe they're not quite as fully attentive or, somehow, bilocated, trilocated. Who knows? We're probably divide ourselves as multidimensional beings in infinite ways, in infinite forms, so we can't really wrap our brains around. So, what Conversation with God talked about is when you die, everyone will be there because you're in no time. You're out of the timeless state. So even though let's say you pass, let's say your mother, Kelsey, passes, right? Well, and you're still in physical, but yet your spirit will be there to greet her because in the state of timelessness, everyone is there, right? So to me, I really love that idea. It's like such a comforting idea and such a cool idea, and makes so much sense. It resonates. It sounds true. It feels true in my being. And I often have taken that idea, and I joke a lot. You guys have heard me talk a lot or at times about my father, who's very conservative, strict, religious, he's a part of what's called the Church of Christ. It's very strict, non-denominational, more prevalent in the South. Church. And with that, it's just there's so much rigidity and a lot of fear based around it, and Satan and hell and all this kind of stuff. So me being me, I always joke with him. I was like, well, Dad, and actually when you do cross, it will be a timeless state, which means my soul will be there too, even if I'm still in physical behind you, right? And so when you're looking around, they also say you create what you expect when you first cross, because you are the creator. You're creating it to some degree. So at some point, I don't know what exactly, he'll see harps and people singing to God and maybe fanning him or something. I don't know. I don't know what you do for eternity in his heaven, but I'm pretty sure harps are involved. But what I jokingly always say to him is like, I since I'll be there waiting for him, and I know his beliefs as he exits this physical life, I've got to kind of screw with him, and I'm gonna transform myself into a Satan-looking figure with like the whole the whole pointy tail and horns and hooves, and I plan to sort of like create a path where he's looking down the path, and I'm like, like twinkle-toeing between trees, hiding, like coming towards him. With my pitchfork. I don't know. This is just my twisted idea of fun on the other side. When Pops crosses, it's like I've got to screw with him a little bit. I got to toy with the whole idea of scaring him, or at least making fun of his beliefs in some way that maybe it will lighten him up and realize, oh, that was ridiculous to think there's some monster here waiting to torture me. I'm creating it all. So that's kind of my underlying loving way of getting that point across. across. So, yeah, Kelsey, I think your grandmother can definitely come back to you in some way, shape, or form. She's always with you, like she said. So it's really degrees of separation, right? Because from one perspective, we're all one. It's all the same thing. So, and then at other perspectives, we take these kind of like soul packets form, and that would be your grandmother. And some people would even say, or me, or you, or whatever. And some people even say that we're composite beings, even now, like the consciousness that animates my form is a composite of, many different souls. So it all gets a little heady to wrap your brain around. And it's, I think of actually Teal Swan talks about that being, composite being and how she was a part of, what was the name of this? Sai Baba, I think is the name of the teacher, if I'm recalling. And he was really popular and, well-known teacher, I want to say in the 20s, and now there's a version of him here now, but she was a part of the previous version, but not a part of, now she's, gone on to be Teal. And so interesting stuff when you really dive into it. And I don't think we'll fully understand it. I think any description or attempt to understand will probably fall short ultimately for what the reality of it turns out to be. But certainly, I think it's pretty limitless what can be done. And I think there is some, I do feel there's some truth to the idea that we would come back into our own lineage, if you will. That being said, I would like to share a clip here, a relatively short clip from Esther Hicks, Abraham, talking about reincarnation a little bit and giving some reincarnation clarification. And that's actually the title of this particular clip. And I found it on the Words Crafter YouTube page. Definitely gives you a little more food for thought to melt your mind a little bit. Let's take a listen.
Okay, I have a question about non-physical beings. Can I just move it just a little bit more?
Yeah, make yourself comfortable. We were just playing with you.
Ready? Okay, I do have like two questions. I'll make them they kind of go together a little bit. I have a question about the non-physical beings, like accessing my spirit guides. I know Esther got her Abraham as her spirit guides. Do each of us have our own collective non-physical beings separate from, like, Abraham is a bunch of collective beings just for Esther? And then there's collective. And the reason why I ask this is because my father was interested in reincarnation and all that stuff, and he got a life reading done years ago, maybe when I was a young teenager, and he was told that there are like a handful of people, maybe 20, that you've lived in other lifetimes together before.
Well, our physical friends are always wanting to quantify what's non-physical. And when you try to quantify it, you always distort it. And you evoke from us, in other words, we will give you the answer that you can best understand. And so in the beginning, Esther wanted to know who we were, and we were referring to us as we rather than I. And so she knew it was more than one. And so the logical question is, how many of them are you? Yeah. How many of you are there? Yeah, and so her desire to understand, we say, there's about 100, but because that was as far as she could understand at that point. In other words, this is infinite intelligence. This is never-ending consciousness.
So like my father who passed away 5 years ago, is he a part of Abraham, or do a lot of souls who move on and they can choose to reincarnate and come back? Are they waiting around for like maybe the certain amount of people to relive another lifetime together?
Where do you get this from?
I don't know. I guess
the conversation about non-physical is as varied as the conversation about physical life experience. In other words, you could talk to a lot of people on this planet and they would tell you that the economy is hard. Or you could talk to some people on the planet and they would tell you that life is easy. Your perspective, where you stand at any point in time, causes you to draw these conclusions about how things are. And so we're wanting to give you the big picture about this. And you're asking these questions with such sincere desire to understand that it is our expectation that as we give you this brief and yet comprehensive description of how non-physical interfaces with physical, that you will understand it completely.
Okay.
So just relax and try to set us. We're not going to answer the questions in exactly the way that you've posed them, because the questions themselves have so much cleaning up that needs to be done that is just a hard way to go about it. So rather than saying, no, not quite like that, or a little bit like that, no, not quite like that, well, there's sort of, we're just going to tell you how it is.
Okay. Give it to me.
So, first of all, non-physical does not need a new body to form in order to participate in a physical experience. That's the first thing to know. Because we are consciousness, and so we are flowing to you and through you all the time. We can be present in the bird. We can be present in the cat. We can be present with you. We eat your shrimp with you. In other words, we are involved in what you are involved in, because we are consciousness, and you are consciousness in flesh and blood. In other words, you are consciousness. The separation between the physical and the non-physical is not necessary to make. It's only in your vibrational discord that you're not aware of the combining that we all are. You see?
So when Esther feels Jerry, does she feel him specifically instead of like a collective?
Yeah. She does, but it's because she has defined him. She knows what he feels like. And that doesn't mean that she knows what he felt like, and so now she recognizes what he felt like, because what he felt like is now what he feels like, because what he felt like is now not what he feels like.
Okay.
But what he feels like now is different from what Abraham feels like. What he feels like is different than what her mother feels like, or her father feels like, or what Jesus feels like, or what Buddha feels like, or what Einstein feels like, or what Steve Jobs feels like. In other words, everyone who has ever been, who is now non-physically focused, all of you have access to them. But you've got to find a vibrational frequency that allows you to define them. So it's all about your definition, you see. Okay. It's all about your vibrational discernment.
I got it, I think.
You did get it.
So yeah, some really cool points here. Variation is common on the other side. Non-physical doesn't need a body. That's a big point. The separation between physical and non-physical is not necessary to make, right? It's all consciousness. It's all about vibrational discernment. You can tune into any of it now. You can tune into your grandmother now, and it's constantly shifting and changing, as everything is, as you are. Think about it. You're not the same you were this time a year ago, or a week ago, or certainly when you were 5 years old. So learning how to tap into these different pockets of consciousness, right, that we then sort of give definition to in some way by referring to them. In her case, you hear her talking about her former partner, Jerry Hicks, who passed over, and how she interacts with him now. That's who she's referencing. He was a big part of Abraham's work and their work for many, many years. It started out with him like asking questions to Esther when she would bring this entity Abraham through her. And so now Jerry's crossed, and she's talking a little bit here about how she interacts with him now and what's that like. And so it's all super fascinating, and certainly something, like I said, I don't think we'll fully understand how it works until we're there, and in our expanded versions of ourselves where we have the ability to comprehend it on multidimensional levels from a multidimensional place out of physicality. But I could be wrong. We could fully download it and get it even more now. I think this is certainly pointing in the right direction, our exploration here today. And I hope it helps you, Kelsey, and any of you guys out there pondering this very fascinating topic. Otherwise, I do have to go. I'm out of imaginary time for today, but I will be back because there's plenty more where this came from. So with that being said, I will always be with you guys, and I do have a song called Always, appropriate for today, by Ed Apollo. Until next time, journey well. Love you all. Also, if you're craving more consciousness elevating content, be sure to check out Gaia, which is my personal go-to source for streaming consciousness content on the web, where you can stream an incredible 7,000 plus exclusive videos covering 5,000 years of wisdom. As you all hear me constantly say, it's a daily conscious effort to maintain an elevated vibration. And if you're looking to journey deep down the rabbit hole to do so, then Gaia is the best place I know of to do it, period. And you can sign up for your first month for only 99 cents at gaia.com/positivehead. That's spelled GAIA.com/positivehead. Check it out.